So restart them. Frequent remembrance of God, though greatly helpful, is not at all is not all that we need for our final success in realization. We generally begin an important thing in the name of God, and it is customary almost in every religion to do so. But that is only a matter of formality and has no real significance. We never dedicate the thing to God in the real sense, or at heart, we are, in fact, quite far away from the idea of God. Remembrance of God, thus, is of no avail. The real significance of the custom is that we must remain in touch with the idea of God in all phases of our mental and physical activities. We must feel ourselves connected with the Supreme Power every moment with an unbroken chain of thought during all our activities. It can be easily accomplished if we treat all our actions and work to be part of the divine duty entrusted to us by the Great Master, whom we are to serve as best as we can. So you have to think about it as a divine duty to this Great Master, Supreme Master. That's all. Service. Now, this is another thing that you will get. The dash and dash are the two instruments with which we build the temple of spirituality. That is an examination question for you. Service and sacrifice are the two main instruments with which we build the temple of spirituality. Love, of course, being the fundamental basis. ಅದನ್ನು ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು, dash being the fundamental basis ಅಂತ. Any kind of service, if done selflessly, is helpful. Service to fellow beings in service of God is in the real sense if it is not done out of any selfish motive. Service to fellow beings is service to God in the real sense if it is not done with any selfish motive. Whatever we do in our daily routine of work is in relation with some of our fellow beings, be they our children, friends, or relations. If we think that while doing a work we are really serving one or the other of God's creatures and not our own purpose, we are still all along following the path of service, although we are outwardly busy with our usual routine of work. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ, ಬಟ್ ಆದರೆ ಏನಂತ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಯು ಆರ್ ಸರ್ವಿಂಗ್ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಗಾಡ್ಸ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಚರ್. ಸೊ ಯುವರ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಇಸ್ ಲಿಂಕ್ಡ್ ಅಪ್ ಟು ಗಾಡ್, ನಾಟ್ ಟು ಯುವರ್ ಓನ್ ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ ಮೆಂಬರ್. ಸೊ ಎವ್ರಿ ಅದರ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಚರ್ ದಟ್ ಯು ಸಿ ಈಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಗಾಡ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ, ಗಾಡ್ಸ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಚರ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ. So then what happens? Whatever dealings you do with any creature here in this creation, your idea of the God will get reinforced. Almost all our activities in life are connected with providing means of livelihood for our children and dear ones. So if we treat them as children of God, who are entrusted to our care and whom we have to provide for and look after as if it's our duty, we are then serving His children and thereby God Himself. Again, if you have children, this is how you actually approach ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜಿಂಗ್ ದ ಚಿಲ್ಡ್ರನ್. ಸೊ ಪ್ರವೀಣ್ಗೆ ಇದು ಅನ್ವಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ 3 ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಇದು ಅನ್ವಯ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಸರಿನಾ? ಸೊ ಪ್ರವೀಣ್ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ನೀವು 3 ಜನ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆ ಆಟ ಆಡ್ತಿತ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ದೇವ್ರ ಜೊತೆನೇ ಆಟ ಆಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ರಿ. ದೇವ್ರ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಚರ್ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಫ್ರೆಂಡು, ಅವ್ರ ಜೊತೆ ಆಟ ಆಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಅವ್ರ ಜೊತೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಅವ್ರ ಜೊತೆ ಹರಟೆ ಹೊಡಿತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. We shall thereby get rid of undue attachment to and shall thus remove one of the greatest obstacles from our path. The process, though easy and simple, will lead you to constant thought of the Supreme Master in all your activities. If this thing gets so deeply rooted in your heart, every action of yours will then seem to be a duty merely for the sake of duty, in accordance with the divine dictate, without any selfish motive or personal attachment. Universal love then becomes predominant, and we begin to love everything of God's creation without any feeling of attachment to it. It leads us to devotion and sacrifice. Devotion makes our passage smooth and creates a channel for the godly current to flow into our heart. It removes the dirt and refuse from our way and facilitates our march along the path. The refuse is really the effect of conflicting ideas that create disturbance and worries in our mind. ಸರಿನಾ? ಆ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಗ್ರಾಫ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ರಿಮೆಂಬರೆನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅಂತ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ಸ್ ಡೀಪ್ಲಿ ರೂಟೆಡ್ ಇನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಹಾರ್ಟ್, ಎವ್ರಿ ಆಕ್ಷನ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಡನ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಸೇಕ್ ಆಫ್ ಡ್ಯೂಟಿ, ಫಾರ್ ದ ಡ್ಯೂಟಿ ಸೇಕ್, without any selfish motive or personal attachment. Only when we are able to do that, universal love will start predominating, and we begin to love everything in God's creation. That leads to devotion and sacrifice. Devotion makes our passage easy because It creates a channel for the godly current to flow into our heart. It also removes the dirt and refuse. By meditation, we create a temporary lull in our mind and calmness prevails for the time during which we are in touch with the divine force. But meditation only as a certain fixed hour is not enough, for we are thus in touch with the sacred thought only for a while, after which we have no idea of God whatsoever and are for the most part of the day away from the path of service and devotion. This is the reason why, after years of practice, we often still find ourselves at the lowest level of spiritual attainment. What is in fact What in fact we feel during the meditation is only simplicity and calmness if we are rightly guided by the capable master. But an aspirant is generally unable to understand it, for it is beyond his conception at the early stages. The effect thus being imperceptible, he often complains that he feels nothing during meditation. This is a very common thing that people complain. I feel nothing during meditation. And we say that the sensitivity needs to develop. Now, if you tell them what is there to feel in meditation, then they'll get offended. So this fellow is not teaching me properly. But here he says, Babaji is writing, there is only two things to be felt in meditation: simplicity and calmness. That's all. What was there before creation, before we came into existence? A perfect calmness. And after we came into existence, what was there? Simplicity. That's all. So when we meditate correctly, what we develop is simplicity and calmness. This is chiefly due to the fact that we
Unfortunately,
get in touch with the divine force only for a few minutes of practice. Thus, the real thing gained during meditation remains with him only for a while. On the other hand, there is a man who tries to retain the effect gained by meditation for the most part of the day and abides in the same state for as long as he can. He is, in a way, in constant remembrance of God, and his progress is easy and rapid. This is what we do with AEIOU. When we do AEIOU with the condition, this is what we do. And in that way, we are connected with the divine all the time. ಆದಿತ್ಯ ಹೇಳಪ್ಪ, ನೀನ್
ಅವನ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ.
ಇಲ್ದಿದ್ರೆ ಯಾರು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳೋರೇ ಇಲ್ದೇ ಹೋಗಿದ್ರು. ಈಗ ನೀನಿದ್ಯಾ, ನೀನ್ ಇರ್ಬೇಕು, ಇಲ್ಲ ನಿಖಿಲ್ ಇರ್ಬೇಕು, ಇಬ್ಬರಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ರಿದ್ರೆ ಯಾರೋ ಒಬ್ರು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಯಶಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೇಕು, ಮೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ರು ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಗೋಪಾಲ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಅವಾಗ ಅವಾಗ ಬರ್ತಾನೆ, ನಂದು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ, ನನ್ನ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿಡ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ. ಸರಿನಾ? ಎಲ್ರಿಗಿಂತ ಸೈಲೆಂಟ್ ಇರೋದು ಪ್ರವೀಣ್. ಇವರೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಏನೆಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳಿ ನಾವು ಉತ್ತರ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಲ್ಲ, ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಪ್ರವೀಣ್ ಪ್ರಾವೀಣ್ಯತೆ ಪಡಿತಾನೆ. He becomes expert in all these things. That's why he just listens silently. ಆಯ್ತು ಆಯ್ತು ಕೇಳಪ್ಪ ಆದಿತ್ಯ.
These are only two things can be perceived in meditation: stillness and calmness. So all
other things are passing phases. In every point, you feel different conditions, but you have to let go of the conditions. See, there are two ways what happens to the condition. Suppose you feel content during meditation. Suppose. Now, you can feel content during meditation, outside of meditation also. That's a different thing. But suppose you feel content during meditation, then what happens? After the meditation, if you don't keep your energy focused on that contentment, it will just dissipate. It will go away. Okay. Now, suppose you actually pay attention to that condition of contentment. You are feeling content, you pay attention to it. What exactly happens? The contentment actually becomes more and more because you are paying attention. When you pay attention, you put energy into it. So the contentment now enlarges. Now it enlarges from the heart. Where can it go? Now it has to be absorbed in the heart and it gets dissipated across all the five koshas. This is what happens. So the first stage, when you recognize that you have got contentment, is the acquiring of the condition. Now, when you pay attention to it again and again, on and off, you are enlivening the condition by adding energy to it. That's why it is called as enlivening. Okay? You are bringing the condition into full force of life. Then in the third stage, the heart absorbs the condition. Like when we put food into the stomach automatically absorbs the food. You don't do anything. The stomach has the capacity to absorb the food. Likewise, the heart has the capacity to absorb the condition, provided it is energized and enlivened. If you don't enliven it, then it's of no use. You lose the condition pretty fast. Suppose you have done the enlivening, then the heart absorbs the condition. This is called as imbibing the condition. You imbibe the condition. That means you observe the condition. Now the next question comes, where does the condition go then? The condition goes from the heart to all the five koshas, all the three bodies. That's where it goes. So now what happens? The condition is also there, I am also there. Two things are there. This is called as oneness with the condition. You have become one with the condition. You are also there and the condition is also there. Both have become one. So this is oneness. Then subsequently what happens? You become so engrossed by the condition. Now the condition covers you in all aspects that you begin to melt away. That's the last stage. When the condition remains and you melt away, it's called as united with the condition. That's all it is. AEIOU. Does it make sense?
I was going to ask if all the other things that you might feel like clarity, devotion, love,
Exactly the same thing occurs to everything.
are they
All
illu
conditions, this is how you handle. So
are
if
they
you do the
illusory?
formula, you will get to know everything.
Are those things illusory?
Illusory.
Yeah, like devotion, like feeling
Don't use the word illusory. They are the conditions that are transient. You have to pass through those conditions and move beyond.
they're fleeting. Basically.
Now, if you are passing through engineering, you will study so many subjects. But you don't call those subjects as illusory just because you got an engineering certificate. If you call it as illusionary, don't you think that's wrong?
Yeah.
Wrong use of the word. Exactly something like that. So when you are passing through engineering, you study so many subjects. When you are passing through the spiritual journey, you pass through so many conditions. The subjects are the conditions here. That's all. Each one is real when you are experiencing it. But after that, you know that you need to get over it and then pass to the next stage. Okay? So any other questions?
Uncle, I have one question. The duty for duty's sake is one part of serving another creation of God ಅಂತ ಬರ್ದೇವ್ರು. So ಡ್ಯೂಟಿ ಫಾರ್ ಡ್ಯೂಟಿ ಸೇಕ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ನಿಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಟರ್ನಲ್ ಕ್ಲೀನಿಂಗ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ದಟ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ರೆಸೊನೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಪ್ರೀವಿಯಸ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಯು ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ಡ್ ಜಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಗೋಸ್ ಅವೇ ವೆನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಚಕ್ರ 1 ಚಕ್ರ 2 ಆರ್ ಸಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಡೀಪ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಲೀನ್ ಡ್ಯೂಟಿ ಫಾರ್ ಡ್ಯೂಟಿ ಸೇಕು ಹಂಗೆ ನ್ಯಾಚುರಲಿ ಬರೋದಲ್ವಾ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು
Natural ಬರುತ್ತೆ, but you can actually start from day one. That's what Babaji is saying. See, anyway, we have to serve our parents. So you will have the thought that we are serving the parents. Now, rather than think that you are serving the parents, if you think that you are serving another human being who is a creature of God, then you will be serving the parent also. You will be remembering God also. Both are happening simultaneously. This is exactly what happens when a wife is devoted to the husband as the ultimate. In the Pativrata Dharma, this is exactly what is the principle. So the wife does not look at the husband as another human being. The wife combines the idea of the husband with the idea of the ultimate. Gandane Sarvasva, the ultimate.
So is this what Yajnavalkya said when it is not for the sake of the husband, it is not for the sake of the wife that the wife is dear to the husband,
Exactly.
but for the sake of the husband?
Exactly. This is what Yajnavalkya says to Maitreyi in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Exactly.
I always misinterpreted that as saying he doesn't really love you, he just loves having you.
In fact, even now, all of us love what we see of ourselves in one another. That's all. We don't have the capacity to love anything. There is only one love, which is self-love. Okay? There are not many loves. There is only self-love. We project our image onto somebody, onto something, onto some idea, object, or person, and we love that thing. That's all. So there are no two things here. All that happens is there is self-love that gets projected onto a person or an object or an idea. And then we love it. We are not loving the object or the person or the idea. We are actually loving ourselves only. That's all. But we misinterpret it altogether.
So is this like an extension of the ego?
Sorry?
Is this an extension of the ego? You're identifying
It is because of the distortion created by the Maya. We totally forget the phenomenon that is occurring. We think that we are loving the object. We think that we are loving the person. We think that we are loving the idea. That's all. But the projection of the self which has taken onto that object is totally forgotten. There is only one self. There are not multiple selves. There is only one self. There is one universal self. That's all. And that part of the universal self is within every one of us.
I remember there is a so when a person is, let's say, becomes devotional to, let's say, a ritual or even a person or a figure, or for example, let's say you hear the name of Krishna or the name of some deity, and you you feel like you're melting or you're in a particular state. Is that again self-projection?
Exactly.
And what about with the master
You are
or the physical
projecting
master?
your self-love onto Krishna or Rama or whatever. That's all.
But how is it that projection is helpful sometimes to people to, for example, calm them down? Or sorry if this is getting too irrelevant to the topic at hand.
No, no, no. Where is the question of calming themselves down? We are talking about love here. Where's
Correct,
the
correct.
question of love?
So if they don't necessarily feel that condition of love all the time, but focusing their ideas on that.
No, no, no. 1 minute. All other feelings are derivatives of love only in different forms. In psychiatry also, we read about it. Every emotion is nothing but a modification of the love. That's all it is. So if you look at it that way, there is only one self, not this body as the self. There is one self. The self looks into the other selves, the so-called other selves. There is only one self. The self is looking into itself. But on the so-called other, that is the illusion, that is the Maya. There is no other there. But it feels that the other is there. It's like a mirage in the desert. There is no real thing as the mirage, but it appears real. When you go near, you realize that it's not there. That's why when we try to satisfy or become content by acquiring objects, we will never be satisfied. Because what we wanted to merge into was the self love that we actually had projected. That's all we wanted to do. But rather than that, we try to hold on to the object or the idea or the person. And then we get attached to the idea or the object or the person. Once you are able to see through this phenomenon, you will never get attached to any object or idea or the person. This is exactly what the Upanishad talks about. The conversation between Maitreya and Yajnavalkya is very, very helpful in this context. ಸೊ ಗೋಪಾಲ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಇವಾಗ ಏನು ಭೂಮಿ ಮೇಲೆ ಇದ್ದವನು ಈಗ ಸಡನ್ ಆಗಿ ಆಕಾಶಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಿದ್ದಾನೆ.
ಇಲ್ಲ ಈ ಇಡೀ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಕಾಶದಲ್ಲೇ ಇದ್ದ.
ಆಕಾಶದಲ್ಲೇ ಇದ್ನ? ನಾನು ಭೂಮಿ ಮೇಲೆ ಇಳಿಸಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ವಾಪಸ್ ಆಕಾಶಕ್ಕೆ ಕಳಿಸಿದ್ನ? ಆಯ್ತು ರೀ. ನೋಡ್ರಿ ನಿಖಿಲ್ ಬಂದ್ರಿ ಇವಾಗ ಆಟಕ್ಕೆ. ಬನ್ರಿ ನಿಖಿಲ್.
ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾಡ್ ಎ ಥಾಟ್, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಥಾಟ್ ಪ್ರೊವೋಕ್ ಆಗ್ತಿತ್ತು. ಸೊ ದಟ್ಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ರೀಸನ್ ವೈ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ ಸಂಬಡಿ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಗಾನ್ ಥ್ರೂ ಬ್ರೇಕಪ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಒನ್ಸ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ವೆನ್ ಎ ಮ್ಯಾರೇಜ್ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಸಮಥಿಂಗ್, ಸೊ ದೇ ಫೀಲ್ ಲೈಕ್ ದೇರ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಗೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಆರ್ ದೇರ್ ದೆಮ್ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಇಸ್ ಗೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಬ್ರೋಕನ್ ಡೌನ್, ದೇರ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಕಾನ್ಫಿಡೆನ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಇಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಟೇಕನ್ ಅವೇ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ
ಈಗ ಲವ್ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಬ್ರೇಕಪ್ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಮೈ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಬ್ರೋಕನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾ? So there is a breakage. That's also the reason why people end up harming others or harming themselves. When there is a breakup of love and the person is intensely loving the other person, their idea of harming themselves ends up harming the other person because they see themselves in the other person. So they end up killing the other person. This is exactly what happens in all the killings after love. So when the self is projected to such an extent onto the other person that you no longer feel that yourself is yours. It is now projected on the other person so much that everything is out. Then when the love breaks up, you are kind of broken. You are nowhere in the picture. You have lost everything. That's why you feel you have lost everything, including yourself.
Sir, also one more thought, Bandhu, because I've talked to many of my friends. ಈ ಥರ
ಯಾಕ್ರಿ?
topic
ಅಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಲವ್ ಫೇಲ್ಯೂರ್ ಆಗಿದೆಯೇನ್ರಿ?
ಇಲ್ಲ, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಕಾಮನ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಸರ್. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಕಾಮನ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್ ಅಕ್ರಾಸ್ ಇದು. ಸೊ ಒಂದೇನಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಐ ಹವ್ ಸೀನ್ ಮೆನಿ ಸೇ ದಟ್ ದೇ ಫೀಲ್ ವೆರಿ ಓಕೆ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ವೆನ್ ದೇ ಫೀಲ್ ದಟ್ ಈವನ್ ದಟ್ ದ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಈಸ್ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್. ಬಟ್ ಅವರು ಸತ್ತೋಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ಥರ ಫೀಲಿಂಗ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಒಂಥರ ದೇ ಫೀಲ್ ಓಕೆ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಷ್ಟು ಬ್ರೇಕಪ್ ಆರ್ ಇದಿರ್ತಾರೆ.
Exactly. Basically, they want to kind of remove that object from their mind. That's all. How you want to remove the object, it's up to you. You can suppress it. You can think that it's now gone. You can think that it is dead. Whatever. That is your idea. Each one will work out.
Okay.
Aita. So not only we project ourselves onto the other person or other object or idea, we get attached to it. When we get attached to it, we start feeling that the relationship is very intense. That is when we actually become possessive. Possessiveness comes when we attach ourselves to the other person. Till that attachment is not there, but only the projection is there, there is freedom for both the people. You got the point? The moment the attachment sets in, you start expecting the other person to behave as you want them to behave. And that is called as possession. ಇವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೆ ಅವ್ರು ತಿನ್ಬೇಕು, ಇವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೆ ಅವ್ರು ಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು, ಇವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ ಕಡೆಗೆ ಅವ್ರ ಹತ್ರ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು, ಇವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದವ್ರನ್ನೇ ಅವ್ರು ಮೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಪೊಸೆಷನ್ ಸೈನ್ಸ್. Possession, although it is a grosser form of love, more intense love, it actually restricts the person's freedom. In true love, there is projection of the self, but there is no restriction of the freedom. That is true love. ಸರಿನಾ? ಸೊ ಯಾರಾದರೂ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಗರ್ಲ್ ಫ್ರೆಂಡು ಇದೇ ಹೋಟ್ಲಿಗೆ ಊಟ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಬರಬೇಕು, ಇಲ್ಲ ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಇರಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಪೊಸೆಷನ್. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಇದೇ ಬಟ್ಟೆ ನಂಗೆ ತೆಕ್ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕು, ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಮಾತಾಡಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಪೊಸೆಷನ್. ಇದೇ ತರನೇ ಮನೆ ತಗೋಬೇಕು, ಇದೇ ತರನೇ ಕಾರ್ ತಗೋಬೇಕು, ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಹೋಗ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೆದರಿಸ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಪೊಸೆಷನ್. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ದಟ್ ದೇ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಲವ್, but they don't know how to handle that love. That is what it is. So ಗೋಪಾಲ್ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಬಂದ, ಆಯ್ತು, ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಬಂದಾಯ್ತು, ಆಯ್ತು, 4 ಜನ ಬಂದಾಯ್ತು. ನಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರವೀಣ್ ಹಂಗೆ ಕೂತಿದ್ದಾನೆ ಇನ್ನು.
Another perspective.
ಪ್ರವೀಣ್ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಅನುಭವಸ್ಥರು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಸರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ. ಲವ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಅನುಭವ ಪಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದವರೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಸರ್, ನನಗೆ ಇದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ. ಆಯ್ತು, ಹೇಳಿ.
Another perspective on loving somebody is also expansion of self.
Correct.
Is it?
Loving somebody in the right way is expansion of the self. So when we actually expand in consciousness and when we start including other people, we love them as though we love ourselves. So in that perspective, love is an expansion of the self. Correct. The selfhood, which is just restricted to the body and the mind, when it gets expanded, it starts including others also in that selfhood. That is the expansion of the love. That's all. So when the self expands into the universal self, it loves everything which is in the universe. That's what happens. So when this individual self expands into the universal self, like the individual self has the capacity to love anything, when the universal self loves everything. If we identify ourselves as individual, we love another individual. If we identify ourselves as the universal, we love entirely whatever is there in the universal. Everything becomes lovable. Everything becomes acceptable. Simna. ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಯಾರು ತಲೆ ಕೂಡ ಅಲ್ಲಾಡ್ಸ್ತೀರ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಚಿಂತಾಕ್ರಾಂತರಾಗಿ ಕೈ ಹಿಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀರಿ.
ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. So I'm actually reading that for the sake of the self, that full line, that full verse. ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ನನಗೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. But I'm processing what you said as well. Putting that in the
ವರ್ಸ್ ಓದ್ತಾ ಇದ್ಯಾ ಮೈತ್ರಿ? ಇದು ಅದ್ರದ್ದು ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಷನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ಕೇಳು. ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಕೃಷ್ಣಾನಂದ.org ಅಂತಿದೆ. swami-krishnananda.org. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗು. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಶ್ಲೋಕನೂ ಇದೆ, ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತ ಶ್ಲೋಕ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಯಾನ್ಷನ್ ಇದೆ by Swami Krishnananda. It's a very good website. I used to study a lot, almost 5 to 10 years I've studied that website. I've read almost everything that is there in that website. So he has expanded on all the Upanishads, and it's a very, very good expansion. It's highly beneficial. So yaar bekaru Swami dash krishnananda.org. That's and you give Upanishad. You will get that Upanishad page. Then you can actually go through all the Upanishads in English. It's also in audio format. You can listen also, but I found it very easy to read through. And he's also explained many things there.
Which one, brother? Can you just tell me once again? Any such one?
Swami-krishnananda.org. See, he's put it there in the group. Aditya has put it in the group. Aditya is pretty fast in there.
ಸರ್ ಬಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ವಾಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ದ ಇದು ಯಜ್ಞವಲ್ಕ್ಯ
ಉಪನಿಷತ್ ಅಂತ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಬೃಹದಾರಣ್ಯಕ ಉಪನಿಷತ್ ಅಂತ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ಕಾನ್ವರ್ಸೇಷನ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ಯಾಜ್ಞವಲ್ಕ್ಯ ಅಂಡ್ ಮೈತ್ರೇಯಿ. So Yajnavalkya says, nobody loves anybody else in this world. Everyone loves somebody else for the sake of the self and the Britan. So it's only the self, it's the self loving the self, that's all it is. Every other thing that you think of is an illusion. That's what he writes. The very fundamental basis is that it's the love which is the fundamental basis of everything in creation. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನ ನೀವು ನಿಧಾನಕ್ಕೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಏಜ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಒಪ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಬಟ್ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಕೀಪ್ ದಟ್ ಥಾಟ್ that nobody loves anybody for anything else, but just for the self which is projected on them.
So does that corollary of this is that as you grow spiritually, then these projections will also stop?
No, the projections will expand till it becomes universal.
But like, for example, we love somebody for their physical attractiveness, or we think we love them for their physical attractiveness, or we love somebody because they are our parents. Those are not
limited aspects of projection of the self. It is not wholesome.
So the nature of the projection also changes.
Exactly. In generally, if you really love a person, you love the person as a whole. So you tend to overlook their deficiencies. You tend to praise them for their strengths. You tend to kind of look over their eccentricities. All these things you will do when you love a person really. But when you love a person only for one aspect, then all other aspects will become a problem. So you will quarrel about it because it's in tune, not in tune with what you are actually loving. You are not loving the person, you are loving an attribute of the person, or a quality of the person, or a character of the person. That is not true love. In true love, it is holistic in nature. You love every aspect of that person. That is true love. So they might have, say for example, they might not have read anything, but when you love them, you tend to overlook that feature. Suppose you feel that you can only love somebody who's educated, then that cannot be true love, because obviously you will not be able to love this person in this particular aspect because they have not read anything. So when you say the love is becoming true, it becomes more and more inclusive and wholesome. That is the nature of a true love. In other words, in that inclusiveness and wholesomeness, the other person can also thrive and grow. True love enables growth. It does not restrict growth. A restrictive growth actually decreases the chance of growth. A restrictive love decreases the chance of growth. So ನಿಖಿಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ತುಂಬಾ ನಿಗಾ ಇಟ್ಟು ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. ಎಲ್ಲ ಮದುವೆ ಆಗದೆ ಇರೋರೆಲ್ಲ ನಿಗಾ ಇಟ್ಟು ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಓ ಹಿಂಗೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾ ಅಂತ. ಪ್ರವೀಣ್ ಇರ್ಲಿ ಬಿಡಿ ಸರ್, ನಾನು ಮದುವೆ ಆಗಿದೆ, ನೀವೇನು ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅಂತ ಪ್ರವೀಣ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ. ಮದುವೆನೂ ಆಯ್ತು, ಮಗುನೂ ಆಯ್ತು, ಈಗ ಯಾಕೆ ಸರ್ ತಲೆ ಕೆಡಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು ಲವ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅಂತ.
ಎಲ್ರದ್ದು ಅದೊಂದು ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಒಪಿನಿಯನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಎಷ್ಟೇ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಅದು ಏನ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಫ್ಲೋಲಿ ಆಗೇ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ ಅದು. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇವ್ರನ್ನ ಲವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು, ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದ, ಸೊ ಅದು ಒಂದು ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸಿಯೇಷನ್, ಅದು ವಿತ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಏನ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಏನ್ ರಾಂಗ್ ಅಂತ.
Correct. ಎಲ್ಲ ತನಗ್ತಾನಾಗ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್. ದಟ್ಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ದ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಈಗೋ. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಈಗೋನಲ್ಲಿ ನಾ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ, ನಾನು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬಾಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಈಗೋನಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಒಳಗಡೆ ಏನೋ ಶಕ್ತಿ ಇದೆ, ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ದೇವರು ಮಾಡಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಈ ತರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. ಇದು ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಈಗೋ. ಥರ್ಡ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಈಗೋನಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ತನಗ್ತಾನಾಗಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಈಗೋನಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ತನಗ್ತಾನಾಗಿ ಆಗ್ತಿರೋ ಅವೇರ್ನೆಸ್ ಹೊರಟೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಬಾಬುಜಿ ಹೇಳಿರೋದು ಏನು ಗೊತ್ತಾ? ನಿದ್ದೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ಸೊಳ್ಳೆ ಕಚ್ಚಿದಪ್ಪ, ಸೊಳ್ಳೆ ಕಚ್ಚಿತು, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ತುರಿಕೆ ಬಂತು, ಕೈ ಹೋಯ್ತು, ಸೊಳ್ಳೆನ ಓಡಿಸ್ತು, ತುರಿಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತು. ನಿಮಗೆ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಎದ್ದು ಸೊಳ್ಳೆ ಕಚ್ಚಿತ್ತು, ನಿಮಗೆ ತುರಿಕೆ ಆಯ್ತು, ನೀವು ಕೆರ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರಿ, ಏನ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ, ಆದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ದ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್. ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಎಸ್ಟಾಬ್ಲಿಷಸ್ ದೆಮ್ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ನ ನಾವು ಸೂಪರ್ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು. ದೇ ಆರ್ ಇನ್ ಎ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಫ್ರೇಮ್ ಬಟ್ ಸೂಪರ್ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್. We all have that capacity. We can also reach that. So there's nothing wrong in aspiring for it. We can also reach that. ಥರ್ಡ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ಗೂ ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ಗೂ ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಥರ್ಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಆಟೋಮೆಟಿಕ್, ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಆಟೋಮೆಟಿಕ್. ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅವೇರ್ನೆಸ್ಸು ಇರಲ್ಲ, ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಅವೇರ್ನೆಸ್ಸೇ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ಅವಾಗ ಕೆಲಸ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತಾನೆ ಅವೇರ್ನೆಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಇದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಯಾರು ಏನ್ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಈಗೋ.
I actually had a question. I'm just wondering if there's a zeroth stage of ego, which is also like, which mimics the final stages of ego, but is actually the fully animal tendency. Like there's a stimulus, there's a response, you act, you don't, and you've not realized that you have done these things. Like fully animal behavior where there's not a single round of reflection.
But by the time the ego acts in that way, the fourth stage of ego, you would have become not an animal, like you would have become like a divine.
I'm not saying that. I'm just wondering, there's a zeroth stage of ego, which is, for example, an animal, which does not also have no idea of it having done something.
One ನಿಮಿಷ. Before the ego reaches to the fourth stage, third stage nalline you would have entered into the central region. Fourth stage nalli you would have established connection with the center.
ಇಲ್ಲ ಬ್ರದರ್, ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಅವ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ತಿರೋದು ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿನ ಮೊದಲೇ ಝೀರೋತ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಇನ ಅಪೋಸಿಟ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತಾ ಅಂತ.
1 2 3 4 ಬದಲಿಗೆ 0. You can call that as 0. Animalistic behavior as 0.
No, so there also there is, I'm not saying it's a good stage. I'm just saying there also it has some attributes of this fourth stage where complete unawareness.
It is impulsive in nature.
Correct.
That's all. We use the word impulsive. As far as the animals are concerned, we use the word impulsive. Human beings can also be impulsive. So that's why people keep telling you, think and act, think and act. So thinking of the consequences before action is more human in nature, which animals cannot do.
I'm thinking of this person, for example, who is prone to fighting and ಯಾವ್ದೋ ದ್ವೇಷ ಮಾಡೋನ್ನ ಹೋಗಿ ಹೊಡೆದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾನೆ. But he's not, throughout this process, he's not even aware that he felt this, he did this, he wanted to do this, and he's punched the guy.
He's in an animalistic state. Total ignorance.
So it's like very clean, it's a very neat symmetry. You go from unawareness to some awareness to unawareness again.
Correct.
We also do that.
Babuji
We also do that, right? Sorry.
That's why Babuji says you start from ignorance, pass through the stage of knowledge, you end up in complete ignorance. That's what happens. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಇನ್ನಿಬ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ರಿ. ಇನ್ನು 3 ಜನ ಕಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಯ್ತು, ಹೇಳ್ರಿ. ಪ್ರವೀಣ್ ಹೇಳ್ರಿ ಪ್ರವೀಣ್.
ಅಲ್ಲ, ನಾವು ಕೋಪ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ ಸಡನ್ ಆಗಿ, ಅದು ಏನೋ ಇಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೂಲ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಅಯ್ಯೋ ಆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಆತರ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಾರ್ದಾಗಿತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಫೀಲ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ.
ಅದು ರೆಟ್ರೋಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟಿವ್.
ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಸೇಮ್
retrospective feeling. Now this ability to do retrospective thinking, that is part of the human mind, which animals cannot do. That's a exclusive preserve of the human mind.
It's a great tool,
Gopal
actually. Now
Krishna,
that I
very great
realize,
tool.
so it's also that there are many people who have stopped introspecting. They have had some blind beliefs or beliefs so far that have made them do what they do, and they have already reached that ignorant state. Ignorance through passing some phases of thinking and believing something that they were told, and then finally reaching the ignorant state, thinking they have reached there already, and what they know is the right thing.
ಅದು ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So that's why human being have got two directions in which they can go. Either they can go up in the direction of the divine, or they can go down towards the direction of the animalistic behaviors. Or they can also, so when we start actually the meditation, our primary things, most of the people have only directed toward three things. It's about food, shelter, clothing, and reproduction. That's all that people are concerned with. Most of the people. So that's like an animal level of existence. Animals also do the same thing. They also look for, except for clothing, which naturally is given by their skin. Every other thing animal also does. There's no difference between an animal and human from that particular perspective. In other words, that we call as the flow of the energy towards the lower three chakras. When we actually come to the level of Anahata chakra or the heart chakra, we start becoming more human. So we raise about the three basic chakras or the needs, and then now we start thinking of something higher in life. Now we don't know what is something higher. So then we can said to be become human. So the heart chakra is when we start becoming human. So the entire Pinda Pradesh journey is when you become human. Then as you proceed higher and higher to the higher chakras, you become humane. In other words, you start looking at everybody else also with the same human angle. That is being humane. Then you start becoming divine, and then you become real. So these are the 4 or 5 stages from an animalistic behavior, human level, then humane life, then divine life, and then real life. So there are 5 levels of life that a human being can evolve from the lowest stage to the highest stage. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ದಾಜಿ ಅವರು ಸ್ಪಿರಿಚುವಲ್ ಅನಾಟಮಿ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಬರೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಅದನ್ನು ಓದಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. All of us can pass through all these stages, or we can actually choose to stop at a particular stage and say we are happy here. ಆಯ್ತಾ? So if we do not keep the goal of reaching the center or the source, we will always end up somewhere in between. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ರಿಯಾಲಿಟಿ ಡಾನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗೋಲ್. Fix your mind on that goal. Now, until unless you fix your mind on that goal, there is a possibility that you can ever get caught in anywhere. You can get caught in the siddhis, miracles, spiritual conditions, knowledge, various things, devotion, service, surrender, doesn't matter. You can get at various levels, you can get stuck. None of these things are your stage, your goal. You have to fix your goal on the reality. Now, you might not have an idea what is this reality. And the simple definition of reality is it is eternal and unchanging, permanent and unchanging. So you have to reach that thing which is permanent and unchanging. Now, how do you know? The moment you reach that, you will know that everything is part of that only. Then you will not have any confusion. Till you see that you are going through things which are changing all the time, you have still not yet reached that eternal thing which is unchanging. Okay? ಹೇಳಪ್ಪ ಗೋಪಾಲ ಕೃಷ್ಣ.
ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಟ್ ಆಯ್ತು ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ. You told
What is
that which
reality
is
means eternal and unchanging. As long as we are dealing with things which are still changing, know for a fact that you have not reached or touched reality. Reality
ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ
once touched, ಮತ್ತೆ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಕಟ್ ಆಯ್ತಾ?
ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಇವಾಗ ಏನಾಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. The specific part where it was cut was ಹೆಂಗ್ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗತ್ತೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ, ನೀವು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನೋಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರಿ.
ಹೆಂಗ್ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, then you will realize that everything that you see in life is nothing but part of that reality only. It's the same reality which has now taken different forms and appear to be different. That's all. Everyone has the same reality. Everything has the same reality. Whether it's animate or inanimate doesn't matter. Everything in creation is nothing but different forms of the same reality. That's all. And then you will remember that you remember three stages of, I don't think, probably we read part of it, I think. There are three stages of Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. First, we feel that I am Brahman, I am that reality. Then you will feel that everything is Brahman. That's the second part, the second stage of Aham Brahmasmi. In the third stage, you will feel that everything is from Brahman. So I am Brahman, everything is Brahman, everything from Brahman. I am Brahman, all is Brahman, all from Brahman. These are the three stages that we actually undergo as we go to the highest stage of reality. So at that level, you will realize everything is a form of that reality and has to come from reality only, through and through. That is when we have immersed ourselves in reality. So this Babaji calls as real knowledge, real wisdom. This comes when you align to reality in the end. ಸರಿನಾ? ಸರಿ, ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದೆಲ್ಲ ತಲೆ ಕೆಡಿಸ್ಕೋಬೇಡಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಬಂದಾಗ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ, ಏನು ಚಿಂತೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಡಿ. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಈಗ 1ನೇ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಮಗುಗೆ ನಾ ಏನೋ ಟ್ರಿಗ್ನೋಮೆಟ್ರಿ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಟ್ರೆ ಇದೇನು ತಲೆ ಬಿಡು ಅರ್ಥವೇ ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ವಲ್ಲ, ಏನ್ ಟ್ರಯಾಂಗಲ್ಲು, ಏನ್ ಆಂಗಲ್ಲು, ಯಾವ ಸೈಡು, ಏನು ಅರ್ಥವಾಗಿಲ್ವ, ಆ ತರ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. ನಾಟ್ ಟು ವರಿ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಇಟ್. But since we have the intellectual capacity, we can try to relate to that to some extent. That's all. But when it comes as a condition, you will feel it easily. Not a big thing. ಸರಿನಾ? ಎನಿವೆ, ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ರಿಮೆಂಬರೆನ್ಸ್ ಹೆಂಗಾಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ಕೇಳು. ಒಂದು ಥಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ರಿಮೆಂಬರೆನ್ಸ್ ಕಾನ್ಶಿಯಸ್ ಮೈಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀಯ, ಅದನ್ನ ಸಬ್ ಕಾನ್ಶಿಯಸ್ ಮೈಂಡಿಗೆ ಹಾಕ್ತೀಯ. ಅವಾಗ ಆ ಥಾಟ್ ಕಡೆಗೆ ನೀ ಗಮನ ಕೊಡ್ತೀಯ. ಈಗ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಅಂದ್ರೆ you are seeing friends who are a creation of God and ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀಯ. So you are remembering God. So the thought of the God now, which was there in the conscious mind as a seed, is now put into the subconscious, which is a fertile ground. Every time you remember God in whatever form, for whatever reason, you strengthen the idea of the God. So the seed now gradually sprouts. When it gradually sprouts, it starts going deeper and deeper. ಇನಿಷಿಯಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ನಾವು ಗಿಡ ನೆಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೋ, ಸಣ್ಣ ಸಸಿ ನೆಡ್ತೀವಿ ಗಿಡಗೆ, ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಭೂಮಿಗೆ. The roots of the seedling does not have the capacity to absorb the things necessary by itself from the ground. It does not have that capacity. So you have to look after the seedling initially. So you water the seedling and you put all the necessary things for the seedling to grow. This is what we do. By constantly or repeatedly focusing our attention on the thought of God, we strengthen the idea of the God so that it germinates and it starts taking root in our heart. Now, when it goes sufficient distance in the heart, like the root of the sapling or the seedling, after it grows to a certain extent, it develops the ability to absorb the minerals and the water that is necessary for its growth from the ground only. Likewise, this thought of the God as constant remembrance gradually goes deeper down into the subconscious and starts drawing energy from the subconscious automatically. This is what happens. Now, when it takes root at that depth in the subconscious, it is no longer felt at the conscious level. It goes away from the conscious mind. So a person who is always doing constant remembrance will not even be aware that they are doing constant remembrance, because it goes out of their conscious awareness, because it is at the depth of the subconscious. Now, what does it do there? It continuously makes you connected with the divine. When it keeps you connected with the divine, it is drawing the energy from the divine all the time. So it is expanding. Now, if the thought of the constant remembrance expands at the bottom of the subconscious, what happens? It starts dislodging all the samskaras from there. It pushes away all the samskaras. So many samskaras starts coming to the bhoga. Not only that happens, many spiritual conditions starts opening up. So how do you know that if it disappears from the conscious mind and it's established at the depth of the subconscious, how do you know that the constant remembrance is there and working? You start changing as a person day by day, week by week, and month after month. ಗೋಪಾಲ್ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ನೀ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ಯಲ್ಲ, ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗೋಗಿದ್ದು ನಾವು 1 ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ ನಂಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತೇ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. Now that is because of the constant attention that you have paid to this particular thought repeatedly. Of course, the conversations that you have regularly with me also helps in that. Whether you like it or not, then that particular thing gets energized. It grows inside. When it grows inside, it dislodges all the samskaras. So many things change in your life without your awareness. Then after 1 year, 2 years down the line, you will realize what I was and what have I become now. So that is what happens. That is the beauty of the constant remembrance. It dislodges all the samskaras. You feel lighter and lighter by the day because the samskaras are getting out of the system. Now, the samskaras which are now detached, if they cannot leave your system by itself, it can only leave your system by 2 ways. Either it can undergo bhoga, you undergo the effect of the bhoga, and then it can leave the system, or you undergo cleaning. So when you come for sittings, after the samskaras have been dislodged from the bottom of the subconscious, those samskaras will be easily cleaned off when you take a sitting. So when you have the constant remembrance running in the background, in the heart all the time, it accelerates your journey left, right, center because of all this phenomenon. Does it make sense? Now see the beauty. The seedling has two parts. One part grows into the ground as a root. Other part grows above the ground as a plant, or eventually it grows into a big tree. See the beauty of it now. The thought of constant remembrance, it is now at the bottom, at the depth of the subconscious. The root penetrates through the other koshas. Right? Like the root penetrates through the ground. This now penetrates through other koshas. It penetrates into the space between the subtle body and the causal body. It dislodges the same thing. It dislodges the samskaras from that space also. So it makes you relieved of the samskaras from that past lives also. Even that now comes to the surface, and that also will be cleaned off. Now, where will this root end? The root of the constant remembrance, it will end in the center, within ourselves. This is one part. Now, the plant is growing on the surface. In other words, we are changing as a person outside also. Till what extent we will change? Till we establish ourselves in the reality, we will change. After that, the change will stop. We have now established ourselves in the reality. So externally also we get established in reality. Internally also we get established in reality. Here, the root takes you inside, and then the plant outside grows. And while the plant is growing outside, it gives you flower, it gives you seeds, it gives you fruits. There are all the spiritual conditions that you come across. Right? In the first year, it gives you some fruits at some level. In the second year, it gives you a bit more fruits and flowers. In the third year, it gives you even more fruits and flowers. So the plant might not change the fruits and flowers, but the constant remembrance gives you different fruits and different flowers at different stages of evolution. That's all it is. That's the only difference. Ultimately, it gives you the most important fruit, which is the reality itself. So just that one thought of constant remembrance, how it can change the entire life. This is exactly what happened to Valmiki when he was given the Narayana mantra, the Rama mantra. And he went on kind of reciting it to the extent that he became constantly immersed in Rama mantra. He was not even aware of the Rama mantra that he was uttering. It cleaned off all his samskaras as a dacoit and all of the past samskaras also. Then he gradually metamorphosized from a dacoit into a rishi. And then he becomes capable of writing the Ramayana. He is Adikavi. He is the first one to write a poetry in Sanskrit. Now, can you think of it? A dacoit writing poetry in Sanskrit. That is the metamorphosis. And that all happened because of constant remembrance. What did Valmiki do? He did constant remembrance. That's all. Now we think that he did mantra japa. No. He started with mantra japa, but he went into constant remembrance. That's all that happened. ಸರಿನಾ? ಸೊ ನೀವು ಧ್ಯಾನ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ರಿಮೆಂಬರೆನ್ಸ್ ನ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ ಕಲ್ತ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನಿರಂತರವಾಗಿ ಪ್ರಗತಿ ಸಾಧನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತೀರ. ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರೆಸಿಂಗ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಟೈಮ್. ಸೊ ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಲ್ಲ, ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಆದಾಗ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ರಿಮೆಂಬರೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಗೋದು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಫಾಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಆಗ್ತೀವಿ. ವೆನ್ ಯು ಗೋ ಆನ್ ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಟಿಂಗ್, ಯು ಆರ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಇನ್ ಟಚ್ ವಿತ್ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ರಿಮೆಂಬರೆನ್ಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ. ಸರಿ. ಎನಿವೆ, ಇದು ಜ್ಞಾಪಕ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಟಿ ನರಸೀಪುರದಲ್ಲಿ ಐ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಆನ್ ದ ವೈಟ್ ಬೋರ್ಡ್. ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ವಾಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್. The root also takes you to the reality, and the plant also takes you to the reality. Then the question comes, where are you now? You are no longer in the picture. You are subsumed in the reality. You are no longer in the picture. You are part of the reality. You are not separate from the reality. Through and through, you are reality only. I don't know how much it made sense or not, but this is exactly what happens with constant remembrance.
I still have one doubt. With this much constant remembrance and cleaning everything, ಇದಾದ್ಮೇಲೂ ಭೋಗನ ಕೆಲವೊಂದ್ಸತಿ ಅನುಭವಿಸ್ಲೇಬೇಕಾ? ಆರ್ ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ಇಟ್ how much over deep samskara it is there, it can be still removed?
There are two kinds of bhogas, samskaras. One samskara which you have to undergo the bhoga. You cannot escape. It is inevitable. But majority of the bhogas are some such that it can be cleaned up. You don't need to undergo the bhoga. Majority samskaras are like that. There are very few samskaras, the bhoga of which we have to undergo.
Sorry,
But the intensity of that bhoga will be reduced, right?
Sorry?
Intensity of bhoga will be reduced.
See, the bhoga, the samskaras get cleaned. Okay, as and when the samskaras get cleaned, obviously the need for the bhoga also will come down automatically. Right? Then what happens? The bhoga will bring about the fructification of those samskaras, the results of which are inevitable. But it will happen in due course of time. What will happen in between? You will actually start developing spiritual bhoga, spiritual samskaras. You replace the material samskaras with the spiritual samskaras. All the conditions that you pass through are spiritual samskaras only. Initially, you will feel nice about it. After that, you want to just let go of it. Right? All the subjects that you study during engineering or during UPSC exams, they are all necessity while studying. But after you have passed, where is the question of holding on to it? Why will you hold on to it? You will just give it away. And you will only refer to those things that is necessary for you at that time. That's all. Right? You don't carry the burden of the learning or the effort that you have put in when you go through an examination. After the examination is passed, only the essence of the learning that you have put in, that is all that you carry. Not all the effort, all the experience that you went through. ಸೊ ಭೋಗ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಎರಡಿದೆ. ಕೆಲವು ಸಂಸ್ಕಾರಗಳು ಭೋಗ ಆಗಲೇಬೇಕು, ಇನ್ನೆವಿಟಬಲ್, ದಟ್ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಬಿ ಆಲ್ಟರ್ಡ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಗೋ. ಬಟ್ ಮೆಜಾರಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ದ ಭೋಗ, ದ ಸಂಸ್ಕಾರಸ್ ಆರ್ ಸಚ್ ದಟ್ we don't need to undergo the bhoga. Those are the things which are all cleaned away. ಇದು ಉತ್ತರ ಹೇಳ್ತೋ ಇಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಐ ಡೋಂಟ್ ನೋ ಇಫ್ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಎನಿ ಅದರ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್.
ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಜನರಲ್ ದಾಜಿಗೆ ಪ್ರೇ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ವಾಂಟೆಡ್ ಟು ಆಸ್ಕ್ ಇಸ್ ಹೌ ಇಸ್ ಅಂತ. ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಹೋದಾಗ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ he had a back pain or something. Just want to ask how is his condition.
Oh, that is because masters takes the samskaras of other people and help them progress by taking their samskaras. It is not their samskaras. They take the samskara of many of the people that they initiate, and they have to undergo the effect of that. In that way, master, that's another way for the master to work. And that is the reason why we pray for the master. You might wonder, why should we pray for the master? If he is established in the ultimate, why should we pray for the master? This is a question everyone will have. He cannot pray for himself now because he is beyond the idea of the body and the mind. Once he is beyond the idea of the body and the mind, how can he pray for himself? He cannot pray. So the master's health can only improve if the abhyasis pray for it, not otherwise. Then the question comes, who do we pray? We pray to the ultimate to help the master have a better health and long life. Why is it necessary for us to pray like that? Because the presence of the living master is good for us. The longer he is there, it is better for our journey. So it's like a mutually dependent thing. We pray for the master for his long life and good health. So we benefit out of it by his presence. But master also benefits by the prayer because his health will improve. By his presence, we will benefit. By his health, or by praying for his health, we will also benefit. So either way, both will benefit. Master then takes on the samskaras of other people and then helps them actually get over the barriers of different chakras by taking on. One of the things that happens is normally we talk about only two things: the samskara coming to bhoga or getting cleaned up. The third way is you just take the samskara of the other person onto yourself. Transfer samskara. This occurs at a higher level. We don't need to worry about it in the Pinda Pradesh, but the higher level, the transfer of samskara takes place from the disciple to the master. That is called as initiation, higher level of initiation. There are two levels of initiation in our system. Lower level is initiation when we actually take the 3 sittings. That's the initial initiation. Then the higher level is when the master sees that he is established firmly in your heart, he gives you the final level of initiation. When he gives you the final level of initiation, he actually takes over the burden of your samskaras onto himself. That is what happens. But even at that level, those samskaras that we have to undergo the bhoga of will still be with us. ಕನ್ಫ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಇದೇನೇನೋ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದಾರಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ.
ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂಕಲ್, ಸ್ಪಿರಿಚುವಲ್ ಅಂಟೈನ್ಮೆಂಟ್, I think it's sort of mentioned.
He's mentioned about it.
Hi uncle, I think I need to drop off. ಅಮ್ಮ ಊಟಕ್ಕೆ ಕರೀತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ.
ಸರಿ ಕಣೆ, 9:10 ಆಯ್ತು. ನಾನು ಟೈಮ್ ಹೋಗಿದ್ದೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. 9:10 ಆಗೋಗಿದೆ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ. ನಾವಿನ್ನು ನೆಟ್ 2 ಪೇಜ್ ಓದಿಲ್ಲ ಇವತ್ತು.
ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿಂದ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು.
ಡಿಸ್ಕಷನ್ಗೆ ಇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಉತ್ತರ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಕ್ಲಾರಿಫೈ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಬಟ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಪೇಜ್ ಓದ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಸರಿನಾ? ಸರಿ.